Welcome to the New England Football Show presented by Mortgage Right. I'm your host, John Sarianides. As always, I'm joined by my partner, the incomparable Kevin Stone. Kevin, how are you this evening?
Doing good, man. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm sure you enjoyed the warm weather today at training camp. I'm sure you liked getting torched. You're going to
Tomorrow's
get
gonna be.
torched even more tomorrow, so
I was
you
gonna
have
say it's
that
gonna
to
be.
look forward to.
Yeah, it's gonna be worse. Don't. Let's move on.
I love this weather. Obviously, full disclosure, I hate the fall. Only thing I like about the fall is football. I hate the start of school. I hate pumpkin stuff. My favorite holiday is Thanksgiving because it's family, food, and football. But outside of football and Thanksgiving, fall sucks. Not looking forward to it. I hate wearing sweatshirts. I hate wearing jackets. This is my kind of weather. This is my jam. I can't wait for 95 and sunny tomorrow. Before we get started here, I do want to remind you that we are brought to you by Mortgage Right. If you are entering the market as a first-time home buyer, selling your home and moving on to your next home, or refinancing, then you need to give our good friend Herb Devine a call, 781-254-2846. You can also shoot him an email at herb@mortgageright.com. With over 27 years of experience, Herb has the knowledge and the know-how to guide you through the real estate process. If you are ready to purchase your next home, purchase your first home, or refinance the current home you're living in and get into a more affordable mortgage, then give our good friend Herb Devine a call. That number is 781-254-2846. Or you can shoot him an email at herb@mortgageright.com. He and his team are available anytime, including nights and weekends. And trust me when I tell you, Herb will answer the phone if you call him on a Saturday night at 7. He'll step out of family dinner and do that. We've got a comment right out of the gate here, Stone. I feel like we're going to have an action-packed night. It's interrupting your Raw session. Who the hell still watches Raw now that it's on Netflix anyway? Great to have you guys back on. How is training camp going? Wide receivers and Drake May have looked good. Thoughts? Ken, thanks, man. Appreciate it. We were actually on last week as well. I would imagine you were probably away or busy, but thanks for coming back with us, and we're going to address that question right now, and I'm glad you asked. Of course, we have gone through 5 days of training camp already. It's hard to believe, Kevin. Seems like they just started the other day, but it was last Wednesday. They've been camp almost a week now. We've had 5 practices. What I want to do is just kind of get some general thoughts from you on what you've seen through 5 practices. What are the good? What are the bad? What would you like to see them improve on?
So I'll start with receiver depth since it was a question. Pop Douglas is your second best receiver right now. He might be your first. Steph Diggs he's certainly the alpha. And again, you've now seen them, in drills and one-on-one stuff. And he certainly, Diggs, and we've talked about this, Diggs brings that aura to that group and the swagger, all that stuff. You can see it. He ultimately makes guys want to play and perform better as soon as they step on the field. Now, having said that, he is the most targeted receiver so far. I know you love this, the early charting and all that stuff, but
it's my favorite. It's what I look forward to when I come there.
So just naked eye test, and I don't know the exact number. I do know Phil Perry had talked about it earlier today. He is the most targeted receiver, and it feels that way too, as it should. He's going to be your number one. So in team stuff, he is your number one. But Pop Douglas has been their best receiver by far, I think. Whether it's downfield, whether it's intermediate, or whether it's short, he's getting open and he's catching just about everything. He's been good. Kayshon Bouttey's consistent. He's been what he was last year, I think. I think last year helped him a lot. Just developing that chemistry.
And not to cut you off,
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought him up because John Lyons and I talked about that today post-practice on our Patriots Pulse special. And I think he's been one of their best receivers. I think he is quietly having a really good camp. And I think so many people are so quick to say, all right, we know who the top 4 receivers are going to be. Who's battling it out for 5 and 6, assuming they carry 6 receivers? And his name comes up in the 5 to 6 conversation. And I think it's valid. Let's be honest. Diggs is going to make this team.
Yeah.
Kyle Williams is going to make this team. Obviously, Pop Douglas is going to make this team. You'd have to think Kendrick Bourne's going to make this team. So he naturally, I guess you could say, belongs in that conversation. But let's not forget, this guy scored some touchdowns for them last year. He caught 43 balls, had over 400 yards receiving. I mean, he was arguably their best receiver the last 2 or 3 games of the season. So while I understand there's this urge to kind of forget about him and say, oh, he's had some off the field stuff, or he's inconsistent, or he's got a bad attitude. It's great to say all those things. And to a degree, yes, those things are true. But he's had a really good camp.
Well, in terms of the off-field stuff, he was a dumbass college kid. Like it's not like he was, doing drugs or anything like that. So the off the field stuff, I'm past that at this point. For me, it's about the rapport that he built with Drake last year. If you want Drake to be comfortable, he needs guys that he trusts throwing to. Clearly, Keyshawn Booty is now one of them. So, but just overall receiver depth in general, Jalen Polk was back out there today. Frankly, I was surprised he was out there. He hasn't been out there for a single snap, but he returns for the first padded practice. So, good for him for getting out there. But I still think he's a lot further behind than everybody else. He was pretty good today. I don't know what you thought.
Yeah. He had that red zone score. I agree. Listen, I'm a Jalen Polk fan.
Yeah.
I like the kid a lot. I think he has a lot of talent. I know a lot of people are quick to push him aside and throw him away. I wouldn't do that. He was a second-round pick in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
That pick is a valuable pick. It's a high-end pick. You've got to give this kid every opportunity to make this football team, and that's where Keyshawn Booty's going to have to earn it just because he's got a leg up on him and Javon Baker and a couple of the other receivers. The reality is Jalen Polk is a talented football player. He's a talented receiver who can help this offense and be a really good fit in this system. I wouldn't throw him away, man. I would not be surprised. Remember now, last summer, he had a really good camp. I would not be surprised now that he's back, provided he stays healthy. He gets some traction here and he starts to play to the level he's capable of.
He had the best camp of anyone last year, but
at the position, absolutely.
You mentioned Javon Baker. He's been fine, but I think just, for lack of a better term, process of elimination, I still think he's the odd man out. And again, he hasn't done anything wrong this camp per se. In fact, I think he's been pretty good, whenever he's gotten the ball. It's just, again, I just don't think he's ultimately going to have a spot. And then Efton Chisholm, that shine has worn off. He's been virtually non-existent in camp, and that's partially just because he's, not running with the ones or the twos, but that is not, that hype train is gone now. So I'm not sure what we're going to see out of him. And we obviously don't see, many live special teams reps. I'm not sure how much punt return work he's going to get either. Honestly, the practice on Friday night in the stadium might be a big one for a guy like him.
It's going to be huge for a guy like him.
Yeah.
100%. Absolutely. Listen, it's great that he had a good spring. It's great that he had good OTAs, good rookie minicamp, good minicamp. But I think at the end of the day, it's a different deal when you get into training camp. Fall camp is a different deal. And especially now that the pads are on, the ante's been upped here. And he's going to have to step up his game. And when you look at the depth that they have at receiver, I never believed that he was a strong favorite to make the team. Could he end up on the practice squad? Absolutely. But just because they gave him some good money as an undrafted free agent, they don't pay these guys enough that they can't move on from them. Let's not kid ourselves. I think at the end of the day, he hasn't popped to me. I haven't noticed him.
No,
and I think he's going to need to really start getting on their radar here on offense and on special teams to have any shot of making the team or even being considered for the practice squad. But realistically speaking, he's probably a guy that would sneak through waivers and end up on your practice squad. But yeah, I haven't seen anything from him that would suggest that he carried over the momentum he had in the spring and the fall camp. And to your point, and I think you bring up a good one, it's about reps, man. If you're not getting the reps, or if you're buried with the third team getting those reps, it's hard to get better. You got to get more reps. He hasn't gotten a ton of them.
I was going to say, it's like, that's not even his fault. Like, there's only so much he can do. You mentioned getting on their radar. If he can't get on the radar because he's not, in live reps, it is what it is. One guy I want to ask you about real quick, too, and I asked someone else this today, when do you start to worry about Matt Collins? They gave him a good chunk of money.
Well, he's the other guy. Here we are talking about Keyshawn Booty and him making this team, and then Chisholm and some of these other guys. He's going to make this team. So you're at 5, realistically. I don't want to speculate on Mac just because we don't really know what the injury is and what the prognosis is in the timetable. But he's the other guy. Now you're talking 5 guys. So really, assuming they carry 6, you got all these young guys: Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, Chisholm. You got all these young guys that are battling for one spot potentially, which goes back to a point that I have made all spring and going into camp, which is there's going to be a player that's either going to get traded or cut that's a big enough name and a veteran player where it's going to surprise people. And the reason I think that's going to happen is because they have a logjam in a lot of these positions, Kevin, whether it be running back, whether it be wide receiver, on defense, safety. There's a logjam there. And so I think if there's a trade there to potentially be made to alleviate some of that logjam and to open up opportunities for the younger guys, I think the Patriots are going to make it. And I think wide receiver would be a position to keep an eye on. And again, I'm not going to throw names out or that I've heard anything and I'm putting it out there. I'm just simply saying it's a numbers game. And when you look at the numbers right now, realistically speaking, you're going to have a couple of veterans that are either going to be surprise cuts or they're going to be moved here in the next couple of weeks because if they like young players, they're going to have to find a way to create roster spots to keep those guys.
No, I agree. And I see a comment again here from Ken about Kyle Williams. He's a lock. He's 100% a lock.
Oh, 100% a lock. He's going to make this team. I mean, look, he's cooled off a little bit here the last couple of practices, but last week he was impressive.
He's your fastest receiver right now.
Yeah. And when you go back and look at Thursday's practice, I mean, he had 4 catches. You see that speed that popped on tape. You see it in person now. You see that suddenness, that quickness. He can break a defender down. He can get vertical. He has some explosiveness to him. And let's be honest, they need that. They're lacking that. So, yeah, he's going to make this team. And wide receiver, like I said, it's going to be a fascinating conversation here. But I would not be surprised. Again, I'm not going to put a name out there, but I would not be surprised if you see a veteran moved before camp is over, right? There's always a need, right? There's always going to be a need for veteran players at certain positions. Guys suffer injuries in camp. You see it today. Dallas loses Guyton, their expected left tackle. I mean, he tore his ACL. He's probably done for the year. So, I mean, teams always have needs. Guys get hurt in camp, preseason games. Patriots are going to be one of those teams that I think could be busy in the trade market here, and they could bring back either a player that could fill another need or draft picks that they can use next year and beyond. So we'll see. You mentioned Ken's question. He says, from being there, rookie wide receiver Kyle Williams has been impressive throughout the first 5 days. I know it's tough to say, but could he be a potential lock when the roster is set? Yeah, like we just said, I don't see how he's not. Thanks for checking in, Ken. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I don't think it's tough to say at all. I think it's automatic.
Yeah, absolutely. Because he gives them something they desperately lack, which is speed, big playability. So yeah, I'd be surprised if he didn't make this team. Let's put it that way. Ken checks back in and says, meaning you guys have been there in the last question. That's okay, Ken. We could assume you've been there. No harm, no foul. We're all friends here.
Since you brought it up, or since Ken sort of unwillingly brought it up, the crowds have been phenomenal. And we've been there the last 4 years. The buzz has been, compared to the last few years, the buzz is real there. Especially a day like today, where, like we talked about, it's 95, it's muggy, the stands were packed.
Today was about 85.
Regardless, it's hot as hell. So it's good to see that the fans are, at least for now, they're buying into the hype, or at least there's reason to care again, right? Like there's reason for people, to leave their house on a Monday morning and drive down there at 9 o'clock. So I've been impressed with just the size of the crowds, especially Saturday. All 3 of the ramps up top were full too. So that's been kind of a nice touch to see during camp too.
Now, I wasn't there Saturday, so I can't speak for Saturday. And I know that it was get back together weekend or whatever the hell the NFL Network calls it to kick off training camp. Welcome back weekend. I don't know. Who knows? Who cares? I don't think the crowds have been any bigger, though. The days that I've been there, I don't think the crowds are any bigger than they were last year or 2 years ago when Belichick was here. Not in my opinion, at least.
No, so last year, And I feel like the year before, you'd see some empty seats. There's none. Now, and look, don't get me wrong. I think the biggest one was 7,000, which was Saturday, and I think day one was 5,000. And if you've been right around there each time, but I didn't know what to expect. Coming into this year, obviously, Vrabel being a former player and a Hall of Famer, he's going to bring some buzz. But other than
Patriots Hall
that,
of Famer. Important to
yeah,
point out.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Again, I just didn't really know sort of where the fans were at, but it feels like people are in for now, and this team needs that buzz. That's for sure.
They do, and again, I'm not trying to rain on the parade here. I just I don't see a difference here. The one thing about Patriots training camp is it's kind of it's a family event. It has been for a long time. I think for a
Yeah,
lot of parents, kids are obviously on vacation from school. They're on summer break. It gives parents something to do. They'll bring their kids down. It can be challenging with the hot days and everything else, but I think the Patriots do a pretty good job with the fan experience piece. Now, I haven't gotten a chance to do that this summer, unfortunately, but the last few summers, I've gone to other teams' training camps. Last summer, I was at Bucks camp. A couple of summers ago, I was at Texans camp. I've been to Steelers camp. I've been to Browns camp. Um, I've been to Packers camp. I've done training camp at other places, and I always felt that those places did a better job than the Patriots at the fan experience. But the Patriots have definitely bridged that gap. They're definitely doing a better job with the fan experience than they have in the past. So I think that's all that matters. And again, don't get me wrong. I think that there is a lot of buzz and excitement about this football team. Absolutely. I just don't get the sense that the numbers are that whopping. I kind of feel like, to me, the crowds are the crowds. I mean, you had people today. Sad thing is, you had some adults today begging for autographs. There was one guy who
so
was
bad.
sitting there. Yeah, you're trying to listen to what Jalen Hawkins is saying. He met with us after practice. A couple of other players that were on one of the podiums closest to the fans, and this guy's yelling at Hawkins. He doesn't even know his name. He's holding up an old school red Patriots jersey. He's 21, 21. Can you sign this? 21, 21, 21. And then after a few minutes, Kendrick Bourne happens to walk by. Luckily, he knew Kendrick Bourne. And it's Kendrick, can you sign this? Can you sign this? Kendrick. Finally, Bourne, to his credit, went over and signed it. But I mean, this is a grown man doing this, and you're like, all right, what are we doing here? I mean, I get the kids doing it. They're excited. They're young. They're into collecting that stuff. That's fine. But when adults do it, it's like the guy who brings a baseball glove to a baseball
Yeah,
game.
it's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing. Just stop. You're not a kid. Act your age. Ken checks back in. He says, haven't been there, LOL. Lots of laughs from Ken. But anyways, I know it's early, but how was the Gonzo injury today? Did you guys see it happen?
No,
No,
I did
he
not.
limped off.
Yeah, I didn't see it until he was down in the medical shed, if you want to call it the shed, already. To be completely honest, I did not see it happen.
Yeah, I limped off. I mean, that's all I saw. It happened right around when I got there. I was there a
Yeah.
little earlier before it happened. You couldn't really tell what happened. He just kind of limped off and he went over to the back, and that was it. That's not to say that other members of the media that were there didn't see it, because I'm sure they did. We didn't see it. It doesn't sound like it's serious. It could lead to him being shut down for the rest of this week and,
No,
and Friday
I was
night
gonna say,
practice. Yeah.
I don't want to see him the rest of August.
Well,
Like,
let's not get
I'm,
carried away. I mean, if it's
but you
clear
know what I
he's
mean? Like,
practicing, yeah, let's.
take your time with him.
I know, but football is not baseball, basketball, or hockey. He
Fair.
needs to practice.
Yeah.
He needs to practice, because you got to understand something. And I know I'm the football defender, blah blah blah, but the reality is, every day that he misses, he's not practicing that day's install. That's vitally important. This is a new defense, new scheme, new verbiage, new checks, new everything. So he needs to be at practice. And do we see him tomorrow? TBD. It wouldn't surprise me if we didn't.
I
But on the
doubt it.
flip side, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him on Wednesday or by the end of the week at that in-stadium practice. It wouldn't surprise me in the least bit.
So I definitely want to see him for the joint practice. Like, that's
Well, that's next week. I mean,
yeah, that's what I mean. But if we didn't see him this week, I'd be okay with it. But to your point, well, let me ask you this: that at the install, isn't most of it done in OTAs or no?
no.
Okay. I was
The
asking.
base offense and defense is put in during OTAs and mini camp. They'll also rep new concepts that they want to look at in fall camp. But yeah, and Vrabel even talked about this on Friday where they're reviewing. There was a walkthrough day on Friday, and they were reviewing the stuff that was put in during OTAs and minicamp. So yeah, no, when you miss time in camp, man, you're missing valuable install time. You're missing practicing and applying what you're learning. That's why, unless this is a serious enough injury that he might be out for a few weeks and you might as well put him on the shelf until the opener, unless it's one of those injuries, I don't want to see him sit out. I want to see him back. This is a brand new scheme. He needs to rep in this scheme. This isn't Belichick's scheme. This isn't a derivative thereof of Belichick's scheme like they ran last year. This is a brand new scheme, brand new verbiage, the whole nines. He needs to be out there. So barring a serious injury or a significant injury, I want to see him on the practice field.
But now that you've talked it out, I get it. It makes sense.
Yeah, I just can't afford to be out.
The one good thing, he limped off. Like he wasn't carried off.
Yeah.
None of that. So
I don't think it's serious.
Yeah.
I know it kind of caught people's attention in the media world and
especially
on
it was
social
the first
media,
rep,
but
first rep of the day.
Yeah.
So no, I hear you on that though.
The offensive line has been a source of consternation. Very up and down so far from what we've seen. I thought Will Campbell looked pretty good today, had a couple bad reps, but overall I thought he looked pretty good today. Morgan Moses has struggled.
He looks old. I mean, he looks 34 is what I'm saying.
I listen. I know.
I said
you put it so eloquently, but you're so right. I mean, he looks 34.
Yeah.
34 is not old, but to Kevin's point, he has struggled with Harold Landry. He has struggled with guys that can get on his hip and take an edge. And I think that's a big reason why he hit the open market. A guy with his experience, Patriots jumped on him right away, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
But to your point, yes, he has looked his age at times in one-on-one situations, whether it be in group or team. So he has struggled. In terms of the interior, Cole Strange has been okay. Obviously, Jared Wilson's been the story, repping with the first and second team at center. And John Lyons and I have talked about this. Would not surprise me if the rookie from Georgia ends up being your starting center at some point. That might even include the season opener against the Raiders. Mike Onwenu looks good. He looks like he's in pretty good shape. He dropped a few pounds this offseason. Looks like they worked him hard, but by and large, man, it's been very up and down through 5 practices with this offensive line.
How much stock do you put in the one-on-ones?
A lot.
Okay.
I put a lot of stock into it.
That's where Campbell was bad today. And again, it's hard to see where we are, but you knew when he was on the ground today. And that's a problem.
Well, I think I love the kid.
It was against Keon White. So let's give Keon White credit.
And right, exactly. And Keon White has had a monstrous camp through 5 practices.
He's going to be really good.
He's going to be good for them. And he's a prick. I love his attitude. I love his temperament. He was awesome at the end of last week when he met with us on Friday.
Just his demeanor and his look. He looks like an old school kind of 90s badass.
I hate using this term because it's kind of inappropriate, but in football, we have a term. He's a killer. Like, we don't obviously mean he's a killer per se, but he has that edge to him. He has that mentality that he wants to go out there and compete at a high level. I loved what he had to say Friday. He puts the onus on his coaches. He did that at the end of last season, and I think it got a lot of people's attention, but that's the kind of player he is. He's a rare breed by today's standard. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of young athletes today, they're not cut from that cloth, with all due respect. I mean, some of them have a much different mindset. This kid, to your point, has an old school mindset. He's driven, he's motivated, he wants to be good. He wants to be among the best in the league at his position. And I think you got to love him. And Vrabel talked about that on Friday, how much he enjoys coaching him and interacting with him. Going back to Campbell, look, it's going to happen in one-on-ones. It's going to happen. That's where the arm thing, and I've been on record, and I've said this all along, the arm thing is overstated. By the way, Rashawn Slater just got paid a couple of days ago. He's the highest paid tackle in the league right now, and he had shorter arms than Campbell. So I bring that up because you can overcome that. You can overcome that. But here's what I'm seeing from Will Campbell in those one-on-one situations, to your point, is when guys get inside of him and he can't use his arm length to stall them, that's when he has problems. That's when you see him get split. That's when you see him, his head's back and he's getting pushed back and he gets himself into trouble. He has got to find a way to put it all together in terms of his hips, his knees, his ankles, his footwork. His lower half has to be in concert at all times with his arm length, because that's what's going to help him survive in this league. If he's slow off the snap, if he gives a guy an edge, if the guy is past him and he doesn't have the arm length to try to work him out, that's where he's going to get himself into trouble. And you saw it a couple of times today. I mean, Keon White has long arms. He's a guy that can get under you. He's almost 6'5". You saw that today. He had some problems with him. So he is going to need to be really good with his technique, really good with his footwork, and he's going to have to do a really good job at timing his punch. Because if he can't do those things, he's going to struggle against these longer guys that have explosive first steps in the NFL.
Now, team periods, he was fine, though. Well, fine might be too strong, but he held up well. And, like, I thought pass protection was decent today. I thought it's been decent kind of overall.
Yeah,
Now,
I thought today was probably one of their two best days in pass.
Yeah, I mean,
they've also had a couple of bad days.
I was going to say, don't get me wrong. The defense is ahead of the offense. There's no
Which is
question
always
about
the
that.
case. It doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter what level of football it is. The defense is always going to be ahead of the offense. It's
right.
That their install is different. It's not as orchestrated. It's more free flowing. So it's a little easier for the defense to be ahead of the offense in camp. And again, that's true in the NFL, college, and high school. Drake May. Thoughts on Drake May? I think he's had a pretty good camp. Clearly, he's fitting into Josh McDaniel's system. It looks like early returns, at least, and it's very early, so we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. But early returns are he's going to fit in very nicely in this system. And I think he's set up to be coached well and have a big year.
Biggest thing early is no turnovers. The ball is staying in the offense's hand.
Yep.
I think that's the best thing you can say. I loved it. I'm sure you loved it. The fact that an entire day was just spent on the short stuff, taking that easy money. So they're clearly trying to make sure that he's doing all the right things early on. But then, look, the throw he made on Saturday, I know you weren't there. He's rolling out to his right and just flick of the wrist. He hits Pop in stride from maybe 50, 60 yards out. And you can see why people fell in love with him. But the best thing is he's not looking to run first. And again, Forge in Foxborough, I think we talked about this last week. It's the very first clip of the second episode. Again, he rolls out during OTAs, gets to the sideline, but he's looking to throw the entire time. And Vrabel says, great job being a passer or remaining a passer. So they're clearly just trying to drill into his head that he is a quarterback and not a runner. Running is it's gonna be a necessity, not his first choice. And I think you've seen that so far. I think he's been fairly accurate. When he's had time to throw, I think he's been fine. He's been rushed a little bit, and again, you can speak to quarterback play in general better than I can, but I think he looks far more comfortable than he did last year. He's talked about it. Being in year two in any system, really in any sport, you're going to be more comfortable. So I think he's poised. Again, you're right. It's too early to say big year, but I think he's going to be very, very good this year.
Yeah, and again, I think it's early on, and again, it's very early. I can't stress that enough.
Yeah.
It looks like it's going to be a seamless transition for him. And I do think a multiple offense like this is going to suit him well because it's going to allow the Patriots to put in stuff that can play to his strengths. They're not married to a system. Make no mistake about it. Last year when Alex Van Pelt was here, they were married to that system. They were married to the West Coast offense. We can sit here and talk about all we want, that AVP did a good job and he developed May, and he did. I'm not taking anything away from him. But in many ways, that system can be very limited in the sense that it's a diverse offense that has a lot of nice concepts and wrinkles in the way that they utilize motion. We see it with the Rams and Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur and the Packers. Patriots were doing some of that stuff last year, but there's no substitute for a multiple offense, man. You've seen it with the Patriots so far in camp. You've seen formation variants. You've seen personnel variants. They've gotten into two-back formations. They've run a decent amount of I. Like, they are going to be more multiple than they were last year. Last year, they were primarily an 11, 12 personnel team. I think they're going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of that as well, but they're going to be a lot more diverse in terms of their personnel. And I think this system is going to allow Josh McDaniels to run some stuff, whether it be RPOs or zone read stuff. I don't think you're going to see a ton of quarterback design runs. Like
I was just saying, we haven't seen any.
Power. Yeah, you might see QB draw, but I'm not sure you're going to see them running QB power inside the 5. All of that being said, I think this system is going to fit him just fine. I think he's going to fit in just fine in this system. I think as long as he takes care of the football and plays well, I think he's going to love playing for McDaniels. I think McDaniels is going to get a lot out of him. And I think that, again, this offense has a potential, provided May takes care of the football and is consistent, to be pretty good. Ken checks back in. How has Carlton Davis looked?
Haven't seen him.
He hasn't practiced.
That's a problem. Especially if Gonzalez is hurt, for a long period of time.
Yeah, he's your number one corner now. You need him.
You had, what was it, Alex Austin, and who else is number 2 today?
Marcus Jones.
Yes, thank you. Like, that's a problem. So,
although I will say this, I don't have a problem with Alex Austin getting these reps now.
No.
They're invaluable reps, and I think Alex Austin's going to be a big part of the secondary.
Hey, as he should be. I just don't want him as your 1 or 2. Like, that's all.
Well, I mean,
if you have to, it is.
Well, it doesn't matter if guys are hurt in front of him. He's going to be your 1 and 2.
Yeah, I mean, next man up. You're
whether
right,
we're not picking an ice cream flavor here, my friend. He's going to be your 1 and 2 if those guys are out. So,
with Davis though, OTAs, he was there, I think 1 or 2 days. We saw him on Instagram on the jet ski, and now we haven't seen him in legitimately important practices. He missed a lot of time in Detroit, and I didn't realize until I heard, someone talking today, and I kind of went back and looked at it. There's significant games that he's missed, multiple years. So you hope the Patriots, you have to assume they did their homework before giving him that money, but he's got to get out there at some point soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he will. I mean, again, we're not privy to the behind-the-scenes stuff. We don't know why he hasn't been practicing. Obviously, you have to assume it's injury-related. He did appear on one of the injury reports prior to camp. So until he's ready, though, you can't rush him. If there's a time of the year for him to miss, I hate to say it, here I was 10 minutes ago talking about the importance of Gonzalez practicing.
Yeah.
But if there was a time of the year to miss, this is the time of the year to miss. Good friend Lauren Gaudette checks in. Usually she checks in with us after each and every game. Lauren, I hope everything is going well for you. The main concern has to be the receiver room. Anyone setting himself apart from this group, from the group? How about the rookie receivers? I mean, again, when it comes to who's setting themselves apart, I would have to say it's Kayshon
Boutte and Douglas.
Yeah.
Diggs is,
to your point, they have been arguably their best receivers in camp so far.
Yeah, and look, Diggs is your 1. He's your alpha. He's going to be the guy that sort of makes everybody go. But if Pop is going to do what he's been doing, you have a legitimate 1-2. If Boutte does what he does, now you're at least 3 deep, and everybody else can slot in. So, frankly, they've been one of the more impressive groups to me throughout camp so far.
The only thing I'm going to say about Pop, we've been here before, though. The Pop hype train is in its 3rd year now. We've been here before with Pop. Yeah. Now, in theory, Pop could end up having a big year playing in the slot as that F receiver, the famous Julian Edelman, Danny Amendola, Wes Welker role. He could thrive in this offense operating out of the slot. All that being said, though, we've been here before with Pop Douglas. Now we need him, and it's not an injury thing. He's been relatively healthy. It's a consistency thing. We need him to be more consistent. Like I said, we've been down this road with him before the last 2 years, but if we're going to go down this road again, he needs to be more consistent. That's it. He's had a great camp thus far. Let's hope he continues it and carries it on, but he needs to be more consistent. I think that's vitally important for him. So far, he's shown that he can play at a consistent enough level that he could be a big part of this offense as well. All right. Any other thoughts here before we move on training camp so far?
No, I mean, so far so good. And to me, and again, you can speak to this better than I can, but just the way practice has been ran, it's there's no wasted movement. Everything has a purpose. They've been in and out, which I've been impressed. Like, and again, not just for our purposes, but in general, they're getting a lot done in short amounts of time. And it feels like every day there's something productive. You know what I mean? And it didn't always feel that way last year. Like each and
Well, I
every
think,
day.
but let me just say this.
Yeah,
I think it's vitally important to remember, though, and I'm not making
experience.
excuses for Mayo and his staff last year. Mayo didn't have a Rolodex, man. He had no
Yeah.
contacts around the league. That was Elliot Wolf's staff with Bill Belichick's leftovers. Pellegrino, Belichick's kid,
Mhm.
Covington. These guys were holdovers. And then the other guys that were hired, Hughes had a history here. But
Yeah.
outside of those guys, every other guy that was hired, specifically on the offensive side of the ball, they were Elliot Wolf guys.
Mhm.
Alex Van Pelt, Scott Peters. Okay. They were Elliot Wolf guys. So my point in bringing that up is there was no staff cohesion there. These guys
Yeah.
hadn't coached together. I said this to Tom Curran walking out the other day. When we went to that meet the coaches thing in February of 2024, I kind of felt like it wasn't just them meeting us. I kind of felt like it was kind of an introduction for them to each other. They were meeting each other in many ways. They were
Yeah.
getting to know each other. It wasn't just us getting to know them.
If you
So
remember,
that's
they
part of the
walked.
reason why. The reason I mention this, I guess, is I think it's part of the reason why practice may not have seemed as cohesive and organized last year as it does this year. These guys have coached together before, specifically the defensive staff. They have a history together. So it's going to run smoother when you've coached with guys before and you know how each other thinks and you know what the head coach's expectation is. You know what he wants and you just do it.
No, that's fair. And now that you mention it, if you remember right, when we were at that coaches thing, they walked in like groups, like cliques almost.
Yeah, it
If you
was weird.
remember correctly.
It was
So
in retrospect, and I'm not
yeah, no,
shitting on the event. It was weird. It
yeah,
was
very,
very weird.
very, yeah,
I liked why they did it. I understood why
100%.
they did it. Good PR, established a good relationship with the media.
Mhm.
Let's remember though, that was a time in this organization's history where they were also it was almost like as if they were living through the French Revolution. They were trying to erase, their past and they were trying to
Yeah, no,
pretend Bill Belichick never coached there. But the reality is he did, and he won 6 Super Bowls and he did it his way for 24 years. I get wanting to go in another direction, and I understood why they did it.
yeah,
But for me, I walked away from that event thinking this wasn't just them getting to know us. I kind of felt like this was their staff trying to get to know each other. That's not the case this year. This staff is much more aligned, much more on the same page. Ken checks back in. I missed the Carlton Davis conversation. Where the hell were you, Ken? But still would be awesome to have you guys be guests on my podcast when you guys have time. I know busy time of the year. See, what Ken did there is he used the Carlton Davis piece to then throw that in there, that aside. Ken, look, we would love to be on your show, man. It's going to have to be in the off season, though. It's not going to happen now. Unfortunately, as you just said, it's a busy time of the year for us now with the Patriots and, of course, college training camps kicking off in earnest over the course of the next 2 days. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to do that, but we would like to be on. At least I could speak for myself. Would love to be on your show. Let me know what works for you. But unfortunately, man, it's going to have to be in the off season. It's tough this time of year to carve out time to do what we need to do, let alone be guests on podcasts. But we do appreciate the invite, and we will definitely take you up on it. All right. Anything else before we break this thing up and move on to college football?
nope, on to college.
On to college. All right. It is official. Stone has just set a course for us to talk college football. You are watching/listening to the New England Football Show presented by Mortgage Right. I'm your host, John Sarianides. As always, I'm joined by the Zen Master, Kevin Stone. I do want to remind you that if you are in the market to sell your current home, purchase your next home, purchase your first home, or refinance, then you need to give our boy Herb Devine a call, 781-254-2846. You can also shoot him an email at herb@mortgageright.com. With over 27 years of experience, Herb has the knowledge and the know-how to help you get into your next home. If you're ready to take that leap of faith and make that purchase, and it's going to be the most important purchase you make in your life, then you need to give Herb a call. Again, that number is 781 254 2846, or you can shoot him an email, herb@mortgageright.com. He and his team are available anytime, including nights and weekends. All right, Kevin Michael Stone, you ready to talk some college football?
Joseph, but sure.
Kevin Joseph Stone, are you ready to talk some college football?
Of course.
Kevin Joseph Stone, interesting. Kevin Joe Stone. All right. Of course, UMass, Boston College, UConn all kick off in the next couple of days. UConn has media availability tomorrow. Our newest member of our freelance staff, Andy Close, who will be covering the Huskies for us this year, he'll be there tomorrow to cover UConn Media Day. They kick off training camp this week. You'll be at Boston College on Wednesday. The Eagles kick off training camp with their first practice. Joe Harasimiak over at UMass is also going to be meeting with the media on Wednesday as well. They kick off practice this week as well as all the FCS schools in the area. They're kicking off practice by the end of the week as well. When I look at this college football season, first and foremost, I'm super excited, like I am every year. I love covering college football. You and I talk about this all the time. College football is so much fun to cover, covering the D1 programs in the area. It is fantastic. We really enjoy it. It's also a busy, busy time of the year for us. So with that said, let's just jump right into it. This isn't necessarily a college football preview per se, but I do want to talk about all 17. That's right. There's 17 D1 programs in our region now. Let's start with Boston College. What I want to do is I'm going to put us on the clock, okay? And this is, and I know how much you love pressure. Pressure's your middle name. You have ice water in your veins. You're like Yvonne Lendl.
I don't know who that is, should I?
It's a tennis reference. You should know who it is.
No shot.
How do you not know Yvonne Lendl? He's one of the greatest tennis players of all time.
No shot.
If my good friend John Sapicetti's out there watching, he's horrified. Sap is a big tennis guy. He's mortified that you don't know who Yvonne Lendl is. Do you know who Pete Sampras was, the Golden Greek?
I was going to say him and Andre Agassi.
Agassi?
Sure.
He's another, I believe Andre Agassi's half Greek. Greeks are good at tennis. I mean, we play a good brand of tennis, us Greeks. There was the other guy too, the spazzy guy from Cyprus. I forgot his name recently.
Are we on the clock?
Anyhow, who?
Are we on the clock right now?
Oh, yeah, we're always on the clock. It's running. Absolutely. We're not on this clock, if that's what you're asking. No. I'm going to put us on the clock right now. I'm going to start with Boston College. We got 2 minutes to just do a little pre-camp chat about Boston College. You ready?
Sure.
Go. All right. For me, the big thing is their schedule. Their schedule is going to determine how they finish, in my opinion. I've got them at 7-5. It's a tough schedule. You got Clemson and Notre Dame coming here. But that week 2 game in East Lansing against Michigan State, I think is going to tell us a lot about this football team.
So it's funny. I actually think the week 3 game against Stanford will tell us more because you lose a day on that road trip. They have to go out there. So the preparation and routine is going to be different. Look, I think they could be really good.
Only reason I disagree with you there, though, is they had a late coaching change. Frank Reich has taken over there. Yeah. I think they're in for a long year in the ACC. Michigan State, I think, is more of a litmus test because they played him pretty tough here in that Saturday night game last year.
That's fair.
Year 2 of Jonathan Smith. I think he's going to get the Spartans going. That's going to be a tough game, but in a lot of ways, I think it's going to tell us a lot about Boston College.
Either way, there was 2 of those first 3 games, national television, night game. You're going to see them in a big spot early on. So you're right. We're going to learn a lot about them. I'm with you on the schedule. Quarterback competition, obviously, is the biggest story. Yep. I look, everybody knows how I feel about Grayson James. I do think he should be the starter. But if Dylan Wanning is your guy, you can't go wrong. He's just as good, I think. There's a reason Bill O'Brien recruited him at Alabama. For me, the biggest question is the linebacker. And replacing,
I think the front 7 in general, there's a lot of question marks there.
I was going to say replacing Donovan. We both agree secondary should be elite if they stay healthy. Offensively, I genuinely think they are loaded at the skill positions. That receiving core, 1 through 3 alone, with Bond, Harris, and a healthy Skeet. That's outstanding. The running back room is 4 or 5 deep. And that's not even including the newcomers, Bo McCormick and Makai Todd from CM. So, and again, no matter who they go with the quarterback,
Time's up.
I
Finish
think
what you're
they're
going to
fine.
say.
So, again, I think they can be good. I'm with you on the schedule. I just did a prediction for Eagle Action. I have them at 9-3. I honestly do.
That's super bullish. I don't. 7-5, I think, is more realistic. All right,
Fair.
UMass, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, go. All right, for me with UMass, you're going into the MAC, brand new coaching staff under Joe Harasimiak, a lot of turnover on the roster, a lot of new faces. Harasimiak and the staff brought in a lot of talent, but there's going to be some growing pains, though. But the good news is there's a lot of new coaches in the MAC as well and a lot of new faces courtesy of the transfer portal. The MAC doesn't really have a defining team that you can point to and say they're going to be the best team in the conference. There's about 3 of them that are in that conversation. I think UMass can compete, Kevin. I know that they haven't really competed against the MAC in recent years, but I do think that they can compete now that they're pretty much playing a full MAC schedule. You open on August 30th against Temple, but then you got to go to Iowa. You got to go to Missouri. Those are going to be tough games that I don't think UMass can win right now. But overall, I think when you look at that MAC schedule, I think there are 4 or 5 wins there. And I said this last week when I predicted their schedule on anyfootballjournal.com. I think that they have a shot to be much better than people think.
They should be in bowl contention. Just, again, with that 6 wins. So, and look, I know it's a big
think bowl contention is way too bold, in my opinion.
Well, but you just said 5-ish wins.
5 will keep you in the conversation, but no one's taking a 5-7 UMass team out of the MAC to play in a bowl game unless teams drop out.
No. So I'm saying, you think they can win 5 games. You
4 or 5. 5, I think, would be their absolute ceiling. I think 3 or 4 is more realistic.
Okay. In terms of the transfers, having watched and sort of covered their media stuff out in Detroit the other day, this kid Rocco, the running back,
I'm
blanking on his last name.
I know you're
that type of player with experience and he knows what some winning football looks like. I don't think you can overstate that. Having guys that know what winning looks like in the locker room and a coaching staff that knows what winning looks like in that locker room, that can go a long way for them.
Yeah. Well, it starts with a culture change, and they need a culture change. And again, none of what we're saying is a knock on Don Brown.
I was just going to say,
But at the end of the day, there needs to be a shift there to get this thing going in the right direction. And I think Harasimiak could be that guy. He certainly has the traits you look for in a head coach to be that guy. All right, here we go. UConn, and we're on the clock. For me, with UConn, their schedule is set up so well that they could easily win 9 games again this year, potentially even 10. You talk about a team that could win double-digit games in the region, that could be UConn. It's a really nice schedule. They open August 30th at home against Central Connecticut State, which I think could be a tougher game than people think. Adam Lechtenberg's squad is pretty good. They're going to be the preseason favorite in the NEC. They bring back NEC Offensive Player of the Year, Elijah Howard. But the rest of that schedule, you've got some tough games in there. You got to go to Syracuse. You got to go to Boston College. You got Duke and Air Force coming to Hartford. But by and large, that's a very, very manageable schedule. So for me, early expectations for the Huskies are 8-4, 9-3. Jim Moore and his staff did a great job utilizing the portal to fill some key spots this offseason. They graduated a lot of talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But you got Joe Fagnano back at quarterback. The running back room is solid, as always. And then you've got Skylar Bell back at wide receiver. You got some talent there. Lewis Hanson at tight end. The offensive line's going to have some question marks. A player to watch here is going to be Notre Dame transfer and former Lawrence Academy standout Ty Chan along the offensive line. Hayden Bozich also transferred in from Brown. If the offensive line can get it together early and they can plug some of these holes on defense, specifically in the front 7, I have no doubts this UConn program can win at least 9 games again.
The bar should be 8 wins minimum. You mentioned the schedule and just what Moore has been able to do. 2 of the last 3 years going to a bowl game with that program, and everybody kind of left them for dead. He should have gotten some Coach of the Year consideration.
100%. I thought it was a joke that he didn't.
I know. So I'm with you. I think they should be very good again. I also think between that Syracuse BC game, they could steal one of those. I would not be surprised to see them win one or not both of those games.
All right. Good job. You stopped right there on a dime. That's who you are. You stop on a dime. All right. Next up, we're going to go into the CAA, and we're going to start with the Rhode Island Rams, who are the preseason favorite in the CAA. Had to touch the ground to make sure that hell hasn't frozen over, but the Rams did win a piece of the CAA last year, their first conference championship in 40 years. Can they do it again? Yes, absolutely. When you look at what they have coming back, you have Devin Farrell back at quarterback, Marquise Buchanan at wide receiver, strong running game. Brock Bethea will lead the offensive line. I think for me, when you look at URI, Kevin, it's really about their offensive line and their defensive line. Can they replace some key contributors, specifically on defense, like Wesley Neal? How do you replace him? Jim Fleming and his staff have done a great job recruiting, so I fully expect guys to step up. I was really impressed with what I saw on the defensive side of the ball during my spring visit. I think that momentum that Chris Laurenti's squad, he's the defensive coordinator, established in spring ball, will carry over to fall camp. But I think URI being the favorite in the CAA makes a ton of sense. A.J. Pena, after originally transferring to Memphis, has come back to the program. I think for me, man, when you look at this Memphis team, this URI team, yeah, they should be the favorites on paper, talent-wise. They could be the best team in the CAA.
This might be the best roster since we've covered them that they've had.
Without a doubt. And they've had some talented teams. And I even said this last year. I wasn't sure that was their most talented team that wanted a piece of that CAA. But a lot of those guys are back, and I agree with you.
Having Pena back is huge. It's huge. And what media did the other day, they were legitimately talking national championship. Yeah. So if nothing else, they're confident as ever. So and you know how much confidence can go a long way. So I'd honestly, if they're not competing at the top of the CAA or not a top 25 team for basically the whole year, I'd be very surprised.
All right. All right. Next up, we have UNH, who also participated in CAA Media Day the other day. And the thing with UNH is graduating a lot of talent on defense, specifically the front seven, but they have a talented skill group back. Got to figure it out at quarterback. There was a quarterback competition in the spring. Veza was the guy that came out of that quarterback competition looking like he's going to be the early favorite going into fall camp. But here's the thing with UNH. One thing we know about Ricky Santos and his staff, they can coach. They recruit well. They know what kind of guys they're looking for. I believe they were picked to finish 5th in the CAA going into the season. I would not be surprised if this UNH squad pulls it together as we go into the regular season and into the season and ends up finishing in the top 3 in the CAA and being in the mix to potentially win a piece of the CAA like URI did last year. Again, there's some key holes there. It's going to be hard to replace Dylan Ruiz and Josiah Silver and those guys, Ryan Toscano, but if they could replace those guys along the front seven, replace a Wandy Owens on the back end defensively, and then on offense, they could figure it out at quarterback, you know this UNH team is going to run the football. And now with Scott James as the defensive coordinator, and we know Scott well from his time at Holy Cross, you know they're going to play fundamentally sound defense. UNH will be in the mix all season long in the CAA. And if you told me come the end of November that they want a piece of it, wouldn't surprise me at all.
Not at all. And look, I know history doesn't win football games, with 16 playoff appearances in 20 years. You can't ignore that. There's a systematic belief that they're going to contend every year. And I actually asked Ricky Santos this point blank. I said, look, with a young roster, do expectations change? And he said, absolutely not. Expectations stay the same. We expect to be a national contender. We expect to be in the conversation every single year. We expect kids to graduate. Expect kids to, be present in the community. But again, most importantly, win football games. They expect to win no matter who's on the team. So having said that, I'm with you. I wouldn't be surprised one bit if they're contending late in the year.
Stone doesn't give 2 shits about the timer, by the way. He's just going to keep going and going. And again, I think, to your point, if Matt Veza steps up and takes over the reins at quarterback and gives him that consistency that we've become accustomed to seeing when it comes to UNH in the quarterback position, they're going to be in pretty good hands. All right, next up is Maine. Oh, hold on. Let me put us on the clock. Almost forgot. Next up is Maine. Jordan Stevens' squad coming off a 5-7 season. And most people will say, well, if you go 5-7, that's a bad season. That you shouldn't be excited about that. But I will say this, that Maine football program has struggled in recent years. And for them to go 5-7 and have that kind of year, I think is huge. The other thing that I think is huge for the Black Bears is quarterback Carter Peavy is back. That's big. He had a big year for them replacing Derek Robertson. Now, will Maine compete for a CAA title? It's hard to say. One thing I love about this program, and I've said this to Coach Stevens, is I love that they're willing to play people. They played Oklahoma last year. They went out to Norman.
Yeah.
They opened with Liberty this year. They're not afraid to play people. And I think that Jordan Stevens recognizes that you have to challenge your program. I think Maine could do better than 5-7 this year. Some things are going to have to fall their way. You got to replace some key guys, especially up front. But when I look at this Black Bears offense, I think they're going to be one of the better offenses in the CAA. And when I look at that defense, while they're young in some key spots, they are well coached, and they also bring back some really good talent in some other spots. 5-7, they could replicate that record, Kevin, but it would not surprise me if Maine finished better than that.
They had two major upsets last year over Delaware and Villanova. So, say they win one or two more games, we're talking about an above 500 team. So they're ready to take a next step. And again, just sort of going back to the CAA Media Day, they have high expectations. You don't have high expectations unless you're a team that's been built the right way and sort of turned that culture around. I wouldn't be surprised if, again, they're around 500 or above 500 again.
No, it wouldn't surprise me either. And they could take the next step. And even if you finish 6-6, it's huge for this program. And let's not forget, I think another key point here is Stevens and his staff have recruited really well, and they kind of have an inherent advantage with Canada as well. They go into Canada and get some talent. So I think that when we talk about the Black Bears, they're a program on the rise. I would not be surprised if they took that next step. And even if they won one more game, I think it would be really, really meaningful for this program. All right, next up, we have Brian, and Brian is coming off a really tough season. This is a big year for Chris Merritt and his squad. They got to turn it around. Now, look, I think it is important to say that we knew going into the season that year one in the CAA, it was going to be a struggle, okay? You have to recruit to your league or your conference. You have to also upgrade your facility so that you can keep up with the Joneses in your conference. Brian is in the process of doing that. But make no mistake about it, this is a big year for the Bulldogs. Now, they're going to have a new signal caller. Jarrett Guest, the Coastal Carolina transfer, had a great year for them last year. Quarterbacks have thrived in Merritt's offense. And I suspect Brennan Mayer, who's the next good quarterback at Bryant, the next productive quarterback, I think Mayer could have a big year. I got a chance to speak to him during my spring visit with the Bulldogs. I think the offense is going to be fine. When I watch Bryant, it always comes down to the defense for me. Their defense needs to be better. It's huge that they're getting another year out of Michael Audie. He's back inside at defensive tackle. But this defense has to be better. If the defense can make some meaningful strides, and we know they're well coached under Anthony Barisi, but if they can make some meaningful strides and improve, the offense is going to be there. Bryant's going to score points. Really comes down to their defense, but this is a big year for the Bulldogs.
4 conferences in 6 years. No team can be successful, or I should say sustain success when you're dealing with that. So, and Merritt talked about it during CAA Media Day. That's so hard to deal with. So between the young roster and, again, all the conference changes, they're now settled in. It feels like they're going to be here for a while. I'd expect them to be much better this year.
Yeah, they'll be better. They'll definitely be better. I have no doubt in my mind they'll be better. All right. Well, we still have some time here, so we're going to stop the clock and move on to the Ivy League. Next up, we have the Harvard Crimson, who, once again, it seems like it's a yearly tradition that the Crimson win a piece of the Ivy League. They did that once again last year. Look, usually when we look at Harvard, Kevin, they're built on a strong running game and a strong defense. Some question marks on defense, but this Harvard team, they're going to be able to throw the football. Their passing game should be pretty potent with quarterback Jaden Craig back. The running game is also going to be very good as well. They have multiple backs that could really make an impact. It's going to come down to the defense. If the Crimson can play good defense and they can complement that running game and Jaden Craig, they'll be in the mix to win at least another share of the Ivy League, if not the entire thing. And let's not forget, the Ivy League can now qualify for the NCAA FBS playoffs. So there's a lot more at stake here going into this season than strictly winning the Ivy League. But make no mistake about it, this Harvard offense is going to be really good. It's going to come down to their defense. If their defense matures, even though I hate when people say matures, but if their defense matures, I think this Harvard team is going to be pretty good.
I'm with you. Jaden Craig is an All-American candidate. Ty Bartram has already been on every preseason list
and he's their captain.
Exists. Yes. So, in terms of leadership on both sides of the ball, you have those two guys as well. I'd expect them to be right there at the top of the Ivy League again.
Yeah, and I think, again, what it'll come down, we know they're going to run the football. We know that.
Jaden Craig is underrated, too.
Very underrated.
Yeah.
Very underrated. I mean, you can make the argument going into this season that he's one of the three best quarterbacks in the region. And I think it's a very fair argument. And he played really well for them last year. And look, I was very impressed with what they did offensively in Andrew Orich's first year. I thought that they kind of developed their own identity, especially in the passing game. And I think you're going to see more of that. But we know that the Ivy League is a war week in and week out. All right, let's move on to the Yale Bulldogs. And, of course, the big story this offseason is Dante Reno. Tony Reno, the head coach, his son, transferring in from South Carolina. He's going to have an opportunity to compete for the starting quarterback job. And the one thing we know about the Yale Bulldogs is Tony Reno and his staff do a great job recruiting. And while they graduate good players on a year-to-year basis, they're able to replace those guys. They had a strong spring camp. I think they're going to have a strong fall camp. And again, just like Harvard, I think this Yale team is going to be in the mix to if not win the Ivy League outright, get a piece of it.
So this is assuming Dante wins the job. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't. I don't know about you, but I'd be shocked if it doesn't come down to that final game, that final Harvard Yale game.
It does every year.
I was going to say,
and there's going to be a lot more at stake here now because you'd have to think that you're only going to get one playoff bid.
Oh yeah.
Especially this year. So that game's going to be even bigger as if it wasn't big enough to begin with.
Hey, no, but Dante being there just it almost flips the entire conference on its ear because Harvard, you would assume Harvard, Dartmouth, probably the two favorites going in. Until that news broke, he might be the best quarterback in the conference before he's even played a snap. So I think
that's assuming he wins the job. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah,
I think the one thing that Dante does is he gives this offense a dual threat element, which, look, we saw it a couple of years ago with Nolan Grooms. Tony Reno likes that. He wants his quarterback to be a running threat in certain situations. So, yes, Dante gives him that, which I think is huge.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You have gotten better with the clock management, but now you're going the other way here, Stone. Now you're leaving more time on the clock, which is a bit concerning. All right, next up, of course, we have the Brown Bears. Big thing with Brown is you beat Harvard last year. You think that that's the signature win that James Perry and his staff needed to get the program turned around. It wasn't. They turn around, lose the next week to Bryant, have a tough year from there, win 3 games. I think for me with Brown, first and foremost, you got to figure out what you're going to do at quarterback. You'd have to think Reading's James Murphy is probably the favorite there, but they have a pretty deep quarterback room. Now, Perry did make some staff changes this offseason, specifically Dan Mulrooney, the new defensive coordinator, former head coach at Anna Maria. But I think for me, if Brown could figure it out at quarterback, they have a deep stable of backs. They always do. They always run the football well. They have a good skill group. Ty Pezza leading the way at wide receiver. I think if Brown can figure it out at quarterback, and if Mulrooney can get this defense to play with a little bit more of an edge and play faster, and I thought they looked like they were playing faster in camp. I think if those things happen, I don't see any reason why Brown can't improve by 2 or 3 wins this season. There's a lot of ifs there, and there's going to be some pressure here on Perry. They got to get this thing going. But Brown is going in the right direction, but they've got to figure out a way to get rid of the stench of last year because, again, you beat Harvard, one of the biggest wins in the program the last 20 years, and you can't capitalize on it. That can't happen this year. They need to be able to capitalize on a win like that.
It's about their defense for me. they could score with anybody last year, but they were getting in shootouts and couldn't stop people down the stretch. So for me, it's yes, they have to figure out quarterback, of course, but they have to figure out how to stop people too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, next up, Dartmouth. It's hard to believe, but Dartmouth has either won the Ivy League
Crazy.
outright or won a share of it for the last 5 straight years. Sammy McCorkle has done a tremendous job stepping in for the late, great Buddy Tevens, of course. We lost Buddy a couple of years ago to a tragic bicycle accident. Sammy McCorkle steps in as the interim coach, does a great job, leads Dartmouth to a share of the Ivy League. They pick up another share of the Ivy League last year. He's now the full-time coach. For me, big story this offseason, Kevin, is the hiring of Shane Montgomery as the program's new offensive coordinator. Of course, Montgomery was at UMass last year. Decorated offensive coach, primarily in the MAC. Really good offensive coach. Has a belief in playing physical, downhill football on offense. That's what Dartmouth excels at. When they had Q Jones, when they had Howard at quarterback, and they could run those guys, they set a physical tone up front, and then they relied on their defense. And I think that the recipe will stay the same with Shane Montgomery there. I think that they're going to want to run the football, and I think that they're going to want to put Grayson Sonya in a position where he can make plays at quarterback, but they're going to lean on their defense. But Dartmouth should once again be one of the best teams in the Ivy League, and they should be in the mix come week 10 to potentially, at the very least, win another piece of the league.
We talked about Jim Moore not getting, deserving credit. Sam McCorkle should have been the coach of the year in all of college football for back-to-back years. What he's done, and I've been saying this for both years now, it's incredible. When you consider the situation that he was put in ultimately, to have that team rally around him, and not just rally around him, but buy into the messaging, buy into the coaching, and then go out and execute. He's what he's done is incredible there. Just simply incredible.
Absolutely. All right, next up, we're going to talk about the Holy Cross Crusaders. I know that you had a chance to jump on for their media day last week. And look, year 2 for Dan Curran. Holy Cross finished pretty strong down the stretch last year. I think the big thing is when you look at this Holy Cross program from an identity standpoint, they're going to play a lot like they did under Bob Chesney. But I do think it's important. You're starting to see it now in recruiting. I do think it's important, though, that Dan Curran puts his fingerprints all over this program, and he makes it what he wants it to be. And I think this is an important year for Holy Cross to become what Dan Curran wants this program to be. A lot of the familiar names that we've gotten to know the last 4 years from all that Patriot League playoff championship success, those guys are gone. There's a lot of new faces now with this program. But if they could figure it out at quarterback, we know Dan Curran's teams are going to run the football, and they're going to make big plays over the top in the passing game. If they could figure it out at quarterback, plug some gaps on defense, Holy Cross should be in the mix to win the Patriot League, should be in the mix to get a playoff spot.
I asked him point blank, are you thinking about 7 straight? Or more so, how do you not think about 7 straight? And Cam Nolan, offensive lineman, said, we were only part of 3 of those. Like, those teams are those teams.
Yeah.
We need to write our own story. And I love that sort of mindset heading in. And, Dan Curran, he's a day-to-day guy. He'll have those kids locked in every day. The offense I'm a little worried about, they struggled to score last year at times. So I do hope that their passing game is a little bit better this year, but I do think they have a great receiving core. And don't forget, his kid at tight end is now there. He's going to be a weapon for them, a legitimate weapon for that team. So offensively, as long as
you mean a wide receiver?
Sorry, yes, wide receiver. As long as they can score,
put on this offseason.
No, as long as they can score points.
Ty Curran, yeah.
Yes, Ty Curran. Thank you. They should be, like you said, right in the mix again.
Yeah. There we go. Stone finally went over after going under the last 5 teams. All right, next up, we're going to jump into the independent ranks. The Merrimack Warriors, once again, playing one of the toughest schedules in New England. Coach Genetti's squad returns Aiden Pereira and Matthias Latham at running back, the Central Catholic connection. One thing with Merrimack, Kevin, and we've known this for years covering the program, they're going to get good line play. Physical. Defensively, they're going to have athletes on the back end that can play man coverage and ball hawk. And offensively, last year was the Jermaine Corbett show. I mean, you handed it to Jermaine. He was the focal point of the offense. He did the rest. This year, it's going to be more about Aiden Pereira in the passing game. And it's going to be more about getting Latham those touches that they're going to need to replace for Corbett, but he's not Jermaine Corbett in terms of touches. It's going to be more of a running back by committee, with him being the lead back, of course. But it's really going to be about Aiden Pereira in this passing game. If they can throw the football more effectively and they can balance things out on offense, and that defense, which returns some talent on that side of the ball at all three levels, if that defense can play to the level we've seen them play, and they played some pretty good defense. You saw it at times last year, especially against the FBS schools. I mean, they did a masterful job stopping Air Force's option offense. If they can play defense at that level on a consistent basis, this Merrimack team is well positioned to win 5-6 games and beat Sacred Heart for the Yankee Conference Trophy, which they lost last year at home.
So, in terms of Matthias Latham and Corbett, I feel like Corbett was more of a maybe not flashy guy. But
no,
Latham is a
tackle
physical.
to tackle.
Yeah,
He's
Latham
going
is
to
a
push
physical.
the pile. He's going to pick up those extra yards. Yep.
So I think it's a different running style. But that team started to figure it out down the stretch last year, like you said, particularly on defense.
Well, that's why that Sacred Heart loss was a tough loss.
Yeah, brutal.
Because that they were playing with more confidence and momentum on the back end of their schedule last year.
But Mike Giannetti is, again, he's from the Dan Curran tree. They're going to be physical. They're going to punch you in the mouth. It's just, again, it's sort of like a Holy Cross thing for me. Can they score enough points?
How much do you hate that sound?
I mean, it's not the best.
It's annoying.
Yeah,
because you get easily annoyed. That's why I incorporated it. I figured it would easily annoy you. Sacred Heart, the Pios are moving to the CAA next year. That's really the story. Of course, they announced it last week, but we talked about them winning the inaugural Yankee Conference Trophy, beating Merrimack. It'll be interesting to see if they keep that thing going. As of now, speaking of Merrimack, we don't know. As far as we know, I should say, it doesn't appear like they're going to be joining the CAA, but
not yet.
No, I don't know if I buy that. I think long term it's still probably their best move. I think it's more of a facilities investment thing more than anything else. But Sacred Heart will be joining the CAA starting in 2026. And look, for the Pioneers, strong finish to last year. You win the Yankee Conference Trophy. You hope, if you're Mark Knopfrey and his coaching staff, you could carry some of that momentum into this season. One thing about the Pioneers is they're going to play good defense. Knopfrey's a terrific defensive coach. They're going to play good defense. They're going to run the football. At least they want to run the football. It's about quarterback play. If John Michalski can give them some good quarterback play and they can make some big plays in the passing game, then Sacred Heart should be fine. They should be competitive. What's interesting to me is they travel out to Montana this year to play the Grizzlies. So you kind of knew when you looked at their schedule this year, they're upping the ante here. Could they be looking to join a conference? I love that they're joining the CAA. I think it is fantastic. I think it is a good fit. I wrote a piece about how I felt that both them and Merrimack should join the CAA. I hope Merrimack does the same here in the next year or two. But I think for Sacred Heart, if they can carry that momentum over after that last win of the season against Merrimack, they could surprise some people as an independent.
For me, it's about maintaining that culture. Like, Knopfrey has done a good job sort of getting things back to where they were.
Yes. It was a bumpy ride there for a couple of years. They had some issues on the staff. A lot of players leaving the program. And let's not forget, they lost a lot of good players. Malik Grant, Carson Primrose. Those guys both played there before they went to URI. So, I mean.
We talked about it last year.
Marcin Giles, who left there and went to URI, then to UMass. And they lost a lot of talent in the portal as well.
We talked about it last year. I think it was 3 years ago now. If they beat Holy Cross in that playoff game,
we're way over. So
but if they beat Holy Cross in that playoff game, in frigid conditions with a miracle touchdown by Jalen Coker, I think his freshman year, who knows where that program ends up going, even that year. So between recruiting and sort of just maintaining the restructuring of the culture, I think they should be okay.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they should be okay as well. All right, and we're going to wrap things up with the NEC. Of course, Central Connecticut State winning the NEC last year. Adam Lechtenberg's squad returning Brady Olson and quarterback, Elijah Howard, who was the NEC Offensive Player of the Year at running back. Look, the Blue Devils have to replace some key players on defense, but this offense should be really good. And we saw it in the second half of last year. Lechtenberg was able to really do what he wants to do on offense, run the offense through Olson, and then give the ball to Howard when it counted. And he had some big games last year for the Blue Devils To me, I think they're the favorite again in the NEC. I don't see why they shouldn't be. They're the most talented team in the conference. They're a program with a rich history of success and tradition. Lechtenberg has it going now. He's developed strong inroads in Connecticut. He's getting a lot of good Connecticut talent, but they're also doing a really good job in the portal. They did a good job this offseason in the portal, bringing in FBS guys. I don't see why Central Connecticut State, when you look at the landscape of the NEC, and our good buddy at NEC Blitz has talked about this, the conference is going through some changes. But the thing is, when you look at the landscape, CCSU right now is outside of maybe Duquesne, is probably the best program in the conference.
Talk about a culture shift. Same thing. You could say the exact same thing about them as we just did about Sacred Heart. They've just done it a little bit quicker. And last year, correct me if I'm wrong, they were really good in close games late. I feel like so that
They
was
really
sort of,
were. Yeah,
yeah.
especially the second half of the year.
I feel like it's. I was just gonna say, especially late in the season. So if that continues, I'm with you. They should be the favorites again.
Yeah. So we'll see. All right. See, no, we did a pretty good job managing the clock there, Stone. I give you credit. All right. Next up, we have Stonehill. And look, I think for Stonehill, last year was a long year for Stonehill. And I think for Eli Gardner and his staff to get this program back on track, they did a pretty good job in recruiting and using the portal this offseason. But to get this program back on track, I do think they needed some new faces to emerge. A lot of young guys played last year. New offensive coordinator Dan Hebert has a lot of talent to work with. But it's going to take some time to get this program back on track, playing at the level that we saw them play a couple of years ago. You know, and I said this outside of 2 years ago when they made the move up to D1, they had that blowout loss at home to UNH. But outside of that, they were pretty competitive.
They were competing for the conference at one point.
Yeah, they've been very competitive under Gardner. And so I think they need to get back to that. But again, this is a young football team, man. And this is also a football team that doesn't have a lot of explosive playmaking ability on the perimeter. And until you get more of that in the program, and they'll get quality quarterback play, but until you get more of that in the program, they have it on defense. They have it on that side of the ball.
Yeah.
But I just think, in my view, it's really more about getting it on the offensive side of the ball, because they need to figure out a way to score points, because that was a real problem for them last year. When you look at them last year, they struggled to score points, especially in the second half of the season. That can't be a thing this year. They have got to figure out a way to get the offense going, because if they don't, I think it's going to be another long year for them.
I'm with you. And unfortunately, I do think it's going to be a long year for all the reasons you said. The talent isn't developed yet. Having said that, though, it feels like they've done well in recruiting. And that's mostly because we've covered a lot of the kids that they've picked up. So I do hope that those younger players can develop and maybe, reach that next level quicker than maybe we anticipate. But unfortunately, I do think it's going to be a long year for them again.
Well, they're going to be leaning on their defense. You bring back guys like Charles Battaglia at linebacker, Mo Seed in the secondary, Zach Athey up front. They're going to be leaning on that defense early on, especially their front seven. And their front seven has the potential to be really good, one of the best in the NEC. I think if their defense can keep them in games early and they figure it out at quarterback and they can get the offense going, and I suspect that Dan Hebert's going to get it going. I mean, he's got a strong offensive background. I don't see why that they're not better. At the very least, they could potentially be 2 wins better. I think we went way over again, but that's okay because we have one team left, and that's the newest Division I program in the area, and that is New Haven. I'm not going to put us on the clock here for New Haven, but thing is with New Haven, look, it was a late move. They made the move late in the spring. It's also interesting because they made a coaching change. Longtime coach Chris Pencease is no longer in the program. Interim head coach Mark Powell takes over. He was the defensive coordinator. Powell does have big-time college coaching experience. He has coached at Mississippi State amongst other programs. Big thing for the Chargers is the schedule changed. They were able to revamp the schedule after spring ball. It's not a brutal schedule, though. They got to go to Albany. They've got some traditional NEC games. They got to play LIU. They also have Saginaw Valley State coming in. They got to play Mercyhurst. So it'll be a challenging schedule for the Chargers in the sense that they're D1 UB, and they're going to have a lot of new faces. They brought a lot of guys in, especially after spring ball. You also have the coaching change to contend with. But by and large, this was the right move. Look, it's been rumored for a long time that New Haven was looking to make the move to Division One. Clearly, they're willing to invest in the facilities to do it. They're making that move. I don't think they're done moving. I don't want to speculate here or start a rumor, but we'll see what the future of the NEC holds. It's like the CAA. It's a conference that is in constant flux. But nonetheless, getting New Haven, another Connecticut program, into the fold as a Division One program for our region is fantastic. We're excited to cover them. We plan on covering the home opener against Saginaw Valley State, a D2 program, but exciting times for the New Haven football program. We'll see if Coach Powell is the right guy to lead them. He certainly has the resume to be the guy.
Yeah, I was going to say, for me, the biggest thing is just what it does to Connecticut football. Like, Connecticut for us it's loaded now, and just in general, but also recruiting-wise, that's a real battle now between UConn and CCSU and Sacred Heart, now even New Haven, and then Yale too. So if nothing else, all these Connecticut teams, it's just going to make the battle for the legitimate or the more elite players, I should say, in Connecticut. That's going to be quite a show now in terms of those recruiting battles in the offseason.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, I think it's going to be a long year for the Chargers just until they get their feet wet. But as we said earlier, we saw it with Stonehill. I say that, but you can compete. Stonehill proved that in year one. New Haven certainly has the talent to compete as well. But if they had a long year, it would not surprise me, and it shouldn't necessarily be viewed as a bad thing. It's going to take a couple years to get it going. But on the flip side, don't be surprised if the Chargers compete this year. A couple of other news and notes here before we wrap it up, and we do appreciate you guys staying on with us for this extended episode of the New England Football Show. Again, we want to do a little college preview as training camps open this week. Northeast 7-on-7, Leominster wins the Central Regional, beating Milton 19-18. St. Mary's claims a small division with a 28-15 win over Greater Lowell Tech. And Lowell beat Woburn 20-12 to win the East Open title. The New England Championships will be played this Thursday night at Milton High School. We do plan on covering those championships. Our good friend Steve Dombowski did post the matchups. You've got BB&N, Plymouth South, St. Mary's, Milton, Leominster, Greater Lowell, Barnstable, and Marblehead on one side of the bracket. And then on the other side of the bracket, actually, no, I'm an idiot. That is the entire bracket. So there you go. I had to double check it. But that is the bracket. And again, the New England Championships will be played on Thursday night at Milton High School. Again, Steve Dombowski and his crew do a great job with the Northeast 7-on-7. Massachusetts Pirates close out the regular season with a loss against the Bay Area Panthers. I saw an interesting rumor floating around on X, Stone, about them possibly. Yeah, about them. I don't know how true this is. And let me preface what I'm about to say by saying I'm not saying this. I'm not starting this rumor. I did retweet it, however, because I thought it was interesting. There was somebody tweeted out this weekend that the Pirates could potentially be looking to relocate. Tampa, Florida appears to be a destination. Of course, Tampa was the home of the Tampa Storm for a long time in arena football. I think that what this says to me, I think when there's smoke, there's fire. Okay.
So it wouldn't surprise me in the least. Just looking at the crowds, no one's going.
Well, look, I think you just said what I was going to say, and that's just it. And this is not an indictment on the product or football fans in the region, but the fact of the matter is, this is a team in 2021 that won an IFL championship. Okay, you didn't support him in Worcester as much as you should have. They moved to Lowell the last 2 years. The support hasn't been there, being in Eastern Mass as well. If, in fact, this is it, this is the final year of the Massachusetts Pirates, if, in fact, they relocate, it would not surprise me. Because at the end of the day, and look, I think we're seeing this with the UFL, right? As much as this is a football-first country, football is king in our country, okay? Whether it be college football and the NFL, they dwarf. Even March Madness, as big as March Madness is, it's not football, okay? All of that being said, football is a fall thing, right? We're a very seasonal society. And you've seen it with the UFL. They've struggled to gain traction in the spring. And a lot of that, I think, is bad marketing. And star power does matter in sports, especially football. And with arena football, I think it's a niche concept that I think has caught on in certain cities,
Yeah, like
smaller cities.
Wichita, Kansas loves it.
Right, around right, like in Tulsa and Quad City and those cities support
Yeah.
they support their local arena team, but we haven't seen that same level of support here. And it's a shame because this has been a well-run organization that has had talented players, and a lot of players that have played a high level of football have come here and played for the Pirates. So we don't know if these rumors are true. My hope is they're not. We're here to dispel them, at least initially. Obviously, we'll find out more as soon as the Pirates season officially ends. They have made the IFL playoffs, but we'll see. I mean, we hope this isn't it for the Pirates, but if it is, it's been a fun ride. But again, I think it's a reminder that no matter what the sport is, you got to support your local teams in order for them to stay. So,
Yeah, just about location too.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, this isn't exactly an arena football hotbed. So we've got to be realistic about it. Okay.
Yeah.
And the reality, too, is, I mean, people's money gets stretched out pretty thin when it comes to sports. You got the four major sports. You got the Pats. You got the Sox. You got the Bruins and the Celtics. But then you have all these other teams now, all these other leagues that have popped up that are competing for the same dollars. And it's hard if you're competing against women's hockey and women's soccer and lacrosse. It's hard to grab a share of that market when there's so much competition out there. So we'll see how this all plays out. Final thoughts.
Nothing. Football season. It's here.
Yeah, that's all. That's all that needs to be said. Football season is here. Get jacked up. Put on your Latimer face paint. Smash a windshield or a car door window and let's go. Get fired up. You please tell me you've watched the program.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, I was going to say, you didn't know who Yvonne Lendl was earlier. Now you've never seen the program?
No,
I mean, I know you're 37, but you're acting like you're 7.
No, now that I think about it, I don't think I have.
Okay.
I was thinking of Playmakers.
Why are you an octogenarian when it comes to your memory, by the way?
I don't know. I was thinking of Playmakers when you mentioned it, though. Remember that show on ESPN?
Yeah.
It was sick.
I guess I never watched it, but
good show.
Yeah. I'm glad you remembered it, though. Your memory is we need to get back into football mode for your memory's sake.
You're not wrong.
All right. Well, that'll do it for this week's episode of the New England Football Show. For my esteemed colleague, Kevin Stone, I'm John Sarianides. We will be back with you next week. Football season is here, folks. Get fired up. It's coming. Until next week, be safe. Enjoy the warm weather because it's not going to be around too long. And as always, make sure you're following along. Peace. See you, Stone.